Howdy, folks. Big thanks to anybody who's watched all these and followed the saga of the last couple of videos. You can potentially tell via my attire I did not get everything done like I wanted to in the one night. It's now actually Tuesday morning, and I'm getting the last one done, and the Kickstarter goes live in 8 hours. So, cutting it close, as always. This is like in school when I used to do my homework on the bus. But yes, we are on to the court of the seven-headed serpent. This is the faction that has been out in the public the least. I've lived with it the least in my head. I've played with it the least. I've played into it the least. So, once again, these videos are not like deep tactical thoughts. They're just trying to get to the rough heart of each warband to figure out if it's something that you want to spend your hard-earned money and hard-fought time on over the coming months and weeks, and specifically day, as the Kickstarter will go live later on. So yeah, let's look at the court. What the court is, what the court represents, is essentially, that we know of, at least for now, the highest pinnacle of the infernal society that makes up hell. Hell is very much like, I hate going too deep into it because I know it's something that the devs want to avoid. So I'm going to avoid major literary comparisons. But hell really is like, it's, it's not all just like people burning up in a pit of fire and stuff like that. It is mirrored and representative of both the divine and human elements that make it up, which with which to say it is a stratified society with nobles and a servant class and warrior classes and very strict rules about your osmotic chances of passing from one to the other. There's a huge amount of politics. There's a huge amount of backstabbing. Like, these are literally some of the worst people to have ever existed, all in one place. Or they're just normal people who had some kind of weakness who got them damned. Or they are hideous, vile creations of tormented minds. There's not a huge amount of cross-function occurring here, is what I'm trying to say. If you're wondering, why are the gates of hell open? Why has hell not won, given essentially infinite resources and numbers? It's because for hell to win, somebody needs to take credit for a win. And one of the main reasons why nobody will ever gather enough power to have a firm grip on enough forces to succeed is because of the court, ironically, the very leadership of their own society. These people are constantly bickering. The seats of power that these archdevils will hold are constantly under siege by their own underlings. Everybody's trying to move up. Everybody thinks that they're, the big deal. Everybody's trying to get ahead in hell society. And the easiest way to get ahead, and this is actually a really good lesson for real life, the easiest way to get ahead is to make the person ahead of you look like a fucking idiot. Have them fail, undermine them, whatever it is. So beware the person behind you at all times is a really good motto for hell. So what the court does in regards to the Trench Crusade universe is they send out hunting parties into the real world to try to find the usual things, artifacts, information, knowledge, whatever it is that might assist their own personal machinations with regards to advancing their own personal position. It's not like the court of the seven-headed serpent is all sitting around going, well, we're all in firm agreement. Here's what we're going to do. On top of that, you've also got a degree of dismissal towards them from one of the most powerful beings in hell, which is Beelzebub. All the seven deadly sins have a throne. all the 7 deadly sin thrones are, owned by somebody who's the representative, the truest form of that thing. Beelzebub is largely considered to be the truest form of pure gluttony. He don't fuck with the court at all. He doesn't care, doesn't interest him. He considers himself to be above or removed from all that petty shit, and his only focus, the only thing he cares about, is infecting every living thing on Earth with the Black Grail. That's it. The court cannot further his aims because his aims directly and openly and unapologetically contrast those of the court. The court wants power for the court. Beelzebub wants power for Beelzebub. Why the hell would he fuck with the court? So it's just a really interesting little dynamic. And then on the other hand, you have Mammon, who is the only archdevil to have held the throne for the entire duration thereof. As far as I know, he has never been supplanted at any point in his rule and his, holding court with the court, as it were. So yeah, they're really interesting. They are heavily demonic. Most of their units have some kind of form or element of the divine in them. They also have a degree of either beast or human in them, which allows them to traverse to Earth in the first place, because were they strictly purely demonic, they would be unable to do so because of a covenant, an agreement basically between heaven and hell, that the truly demonic, the truly angelic cannot thread, but will respond to the presence of each other. The easiest way to kind of explain that away is if true demons and true angels could just visit Earth whenever they wanted with no consequences, this entire battle would just be between heaven and hell, without humanity needing to be involved and with humanity getting smushed underfoot, and that's not much of a story. So this is the easiest way to think about Trench Crusade as a whole, is that it's actually, in many ways, it's just humanity versus humanity. We're taking on the Infernal, yes, but the vast majority of that is of human origin, lost human souls, things of that nature. The extreme upper ruling class perhaps has prioritized the angelic, but they're so eroded by their presence in hell, it almost doesn't matter anymore. Alrighty, I've wandered on way too much. I love the court. Top to bottom, the court would probably be my favorite with regards to aesthetic, lore, how they play on the table, all individual units. Just if you're ticking all the boxes, they're going to tick up higher overall, even if they're a little lower on very specific things. But yeah, the court are absolutely dope as shit. And they have a lot of cool weapons that have cool things. So the Ophidian rifle is real fun because it denies the rules of existence, basically. It's a two-handed 30-inch weapon with the heavy keyword, and unlike most things, it doesn't suffer long range or cover penalties, and it gains +1 dice to hit at long range and +1 dice to hit against enemies in cover. So if you're long range and in cover, it's going to double up on those. And this is very interesting because you can't just take all Ophidian rifles, even though they sound great, because then just why would I bother being in cover? I'm never going to give you that benefit. You need to be able to take advantage of these things whilst forcing standard play from your other units. So keep that in mind. The Serpent Assault Gun, it's two-handed, 36-inch range, 2 attacks. It's got gas, heavy, and assault, which is an interesting combo. The Serpent Gun can make 2 attacks instead of 1. These attacks can target 2 different targets, as long as they're within 6 inches of each other. Then, specifically for the Hunters of the Left-Hand Path, which we'll get to, the Bow of Lethe, which is one-handed, 36-inch range. You can choose between which modifier you want as you fire. You can either ignore the target's armor, bad news Assault Wolf folks, or you can add +2 dice to the injury roll, bad news everybody else, which is kind of cool. They've got a Tormentor chain, It's one-handed at 10-inch range. It's got shrapnel, which is kind of dope. It gets no penalties for range or cover, and it causes no damage except for blood markers due to the shrapnel. So this is really interesting because I'm not sure if it's still the meta, but basically what people were referring to as the BDSM pit was kind of meta because you need blood markers to fuel your Goethic magic. So you would just have a couple of Wretched and a Yolk Fiend whipping the shit out of them with this thing and generating blood markers because they're never going to die from it doing that, and you're going to get your blood markers. So yeah, interesting stuff. They have a lot of kind of cool shit. They've got the Hellblade, which is +1 dice when rolling for injuries. It also has fire, so you get extra blood markers. The Head Taker, I think the Head Taker is an axe. The Malabranch sword is a melee. It's got 3d6 injury roll, which is kind of crazy. Basically, lots of fun stuff. And then the biggest thing that sets them apart is the magic, the Goethic powers. These things, when you're picking your warband, you pick your patron saint is the wrong word. You pick your deadly sin that you are loyal to. So wrath or lust or gluttony or greed or whatever it might be. And that will then give you access to very specific spells that can be granted to units, and units can then spend blood markers to power those spells. So, pretty cool. I don't want to go into details on every spell because my understanding is that this magic portion is currently the least filled out or the most under construction element, but there is some kind of cool stuff in here. Like, you'll be able to do damage, you'll be able to buff your guys, you'll be able to interfere with the enemy. Everything that you could want from magic will be here. And it is definitely the class. It's definitely the faction to go with if you like magic systems, because there's not a strong, ever-present magic system in Trench Crusade. It's just not that kind of a thing. You're going to get the most casters and the most variety of magical tactics within the court. All right, let's talk about the units. I'm going to try and not have this video go on for 40 minutes, but watch that turn into absolute bullshit. So the Praetor. These are the leaders of the warbands of the court. They cost 120 ducats. I think that might have gone up since I'm looking at this document. I honestly can't remember. They are super scary. I would argue these are the most overpowered thing in the game. So they've got a 10-inch movement. They can fly. They've got +3 ranged to dice. They've got +3 dice to ranged, +3 dice to melee, a 50mm base. They can buy up to 2 Goethic powers, or only 1 if you're a Wrath. They are tough. They are strong. So you can have a flying, strong, +3 dice ranged, heavy weapon carrying Praetor, which is crazy. And they cause fear. And they're just stupid. Like, they're dumb as shit. It's honestly hard to explain how everybody was shook when these things arrived. It took forever for people to figure out, like, what are we actually going to do about this guy? So yeah, they're just super powerful, super scary. We've talked in other videos about things needing to be force reactions to, like the very presence of them in a game forces a reaction to the fact that they're there. Praetors are almost the opposite, where you're just mitigating their impact, because if you think you're going to kill one, because it's more than likely going to be armored up to the hilt, then you're crazy. But you got to kill it. Like, you have to do it. You have to try and kill it. So yeah, really interesting, fun, terrifying enemy to have to deal with. And a riot to play, to be honest. Okay, sorcerers. These are the guys who go up the mountains in hell. Mountains is underselling it. Imagine a peak that should not be able to exist on Earth for the impact of gravity. It's higher even than that. And these guys climb up those things solo bolo to collect tablets that contain magic on them because they're crazy. They've got 6-inch movement, flying, +1 ranged, +1 melee. They can take up to 3 goetic spells, and they have to take at least 1. They cause fear. They've got Blessing of the Serpent Moon. Immediately before an injury roll is made against the sorcerer, you may use this goetic power to deduct 1 from that injury roll per blood marker used. So if you've got a load of blood markers, you can kind of somewhat keep these guys alive forever, which is very interesting. The Hunter of the Left-Hand Path. These are the guys who exist out in the deserts, essentially, of hell, out in the lonely plains of hell. They're like hermits. They don't care much for the rest of hell. They don't really give a shit about the court and the lords thereof and the archdevils and the machinations of hell. They just want to hunt stuff. That is what they want to do. They're out hunting things that most creatures in hell don't even know exist. They're out hunting things that occur in paracausal happenstance in tiny pockets of private existences between the edges of hell and whatever it is that abuts hell on the other side. Really kind of fucking freaky guys. They don't really care much for anybody else. So 6-inch movement. They have +2 dice to range, +1 dice to melee. They have an ability called Shadow Stalker. Using Goethic magic, which costs 1 blood marker to use, the hunter can retreat from combat without any of its opponents getting a chance to make attacks against it. Left-hand path. As part of any movement that the hunter takes during its activation, standard move, retreat, charge, dash, etc., it can use a Goethic power, 1 blood mark, to walk the path between hell and creation. The hunter must be touching a piece of terrain when it uses this power. When it does, it is immediately placed into contact with any other piece of terrain on the battlefield, including on top or inside terrain, if legal positions exist. The hunter can do this multiple times during its move, though it has to pay the blood marker costs for each jump between the terrain pieces. If the hunter uses this ability during a charge, it does not need to take the most direct route possible toward its target, but it still selects its target as normal. So, I don't know if anybody watching this will be old enough to remember a cartoon. I think it was called Visionaries. There was a guy in Visionaries who was like, he used to be a a hero, a kind of a knightly character, and he was imbued with evil magic, but he somehow managed to fight back against it and maintain his character while also being able to wield the evil magic. And what he could do was travel through shadows. He could jump into a shadow and pop out of a shadow anywhere else he wanted to. That's this. It's ridiculous. Okay, Oracle Beast Cloak. Once per turn, you can use this Goethic magic, costs 3 blood markers. After the hunter rolls on the injury chart to negate the result and many other effects that affect the hunter caused by the triggering event entirely. Effects from the triggering event, such as blast weapons that originally targeted the hunter, still affect other models as normal. So basically, it's a fuck you switch. You're like, I don't like what's happening. I'm going to burn 3 blood markers and just, sorry, don't, you can't hurt me. So, yeah. Okay, the Hell Knight. These guys are formerly angelic of origin, or they have a sliver of their angelic origin remains, but they somehow kind of dose up at some point and fall out of favor and get folded a billion times and put in these suits of armor, and they become axe-wielding chop maniacs for the court of the 7-headed serpent. They have 6-inch movement, 0 ranged, +2 melee, -2 armor built in, and they cost, I think it's 100 ducats, yeah, per piece. And they're always equipped with a suit of infernal iron armor, which is included in the cost. The armor can never be removed. Allies can be equipped with any other weapons and equipment from the court armory list. They've got strong, which is really quite cool. They've got blood magic. This goetic power costs 1 blood marker, and they can add +1 dice to any injury roll their melee or ranged attack causes. They've got goetic powers, so you can buy 1 other ability for them. Oh, just fun. Okay, war slaves, the Yolk Fiend. These are kind of goat men, cow men, pig men, whatever barnyard animal you can imagine, crossed with demons. And by crossed, I mean like, the bad way. And they despise themselves. They're filled with nothing but hatred. They love taking that anger out on everything else because that's all they've got. These are the literal scum of demonhood. They've got a 6-inch movement. They've got 0 ranged. They've got a +1 melee. And they've got no built-in armor. They can be equipped with any 1 ranged weapon that costs 30 ducats or less. Their abilities are hateful. When a Yolk Fiend is activated, if there is an enemy model without the keyword Black Rail or Demonic within 12 inches that it can see, it must make a charge against the closest enemy model without that keyword as its first action. If it begins its activation down and the above conditions are true, it must stand and then charge. If it begins its activation in melee combat, it ignores it. So basically, they just want to go and stop something. Like, well, you got to judge them. Don't be judgy about it. They just want to kill you. That's it. And they want to kill you up close so they can see the light go out in your eyes. It is what it is. Torturer. The Yolk Fiend can make melee attacks against friendly models within 1 inch that don't have the keyword demonic. When doing so, they can only make a single attack. That's where the BDSM pit tactic comes from. You give them the chain, they whip the wretch generates blood markers, and off you go. You're off to the races with your power. Okay, then the wretched themselves, they cost 20 ducats. They are -1 ranged, -1 melee. These are like absolute garbage, don't get me wrong. They can be equipped with melee weapons, armor, or equipment from the court armory list, but none of them can cost more than 10 ducats each, and they have to be equipped with at least 1 weapon. You can't just like raw dog them into the fight, basically. Law of Hell. If a wretch manages to take any enemy elite model out of action or performs a glorious deed, it gains its freedom and is immediately removed from the battle and from your warband permanently. It does not count as casualty, but your warband's total size for a battle is reduced by 1 for the purposes of morale. So yeah, they're kind of interesting. They're basically goetic batteries. And if you want to try and pull off something dope, you can. Sometimes things just come in clutch. It can happen. Okay, Pit Locusts. These are canonically the first things out of the gate when the Gates of Inferno opened. They were swarming just close to the gate, almost by happenstance. When it opened, they went through. They fucking slaughtered like 1 million people, and the court was like, good on you, Pit Locusts. You can keep that up. You can stay going. You've earned the right to sally forth from the gate whenever and get it done. So an interesting aspect of their creature design is that it's like directly inspired by quotations from the Bible in a very kind of fun and interesting way. So they've got 8-inch movement. They've got 0 range, +2 melee, -2 armor, a 30 by 60 mil base. They wear a suit of reinforced armor, which is reflected in profile and price. They can have no other armor, weapons, and equipment except for the crown of Hellfire, if that's what you want. They do not suffer penalties for fighting unarmed. So they have swarming attack. When the Pit Locust makes a melee attack, it can take an additional action with its stinger. If it charged during the activation, Pit Locusts suffer no penalties for fighting unarmed, nor do they suffer penalties or restrictions for making offhand attacks with the Stinger. The first attack made by a Pit Locust has the keyword shrapnel, and therefore causes an extra blood marker. And then Demonic Horror, they cause fear. Now, the last unit, the Desecrated Saint. These guys are really cool. They're very expensive. They're 145 ducats. These are people who were en route to sainthood. They were going to become saints, but were somehow diverted by the machinations of hell. They were rerouted to be sinners instead, and the lost potential thereof is incredibly strong, and they get turned into still living death tabernacles. I don't really know how else one would describe it. So 6-inch movement, can't do ranged, and non-applicable on ranged. They've got +3 dice in melee, they've got -3 armor, and they wear this enormous, I mean, literally the word that keeps coming to mind is tabernacle from a church, you know what? That's what they look like, but with a dead lost saint inside. So the Desecrated Saint have 3 functional arms and carry up to 3 melee weapons, only one of which can be a 2-handed weapon. When the Desecrated Saint makes a melee attack, it can take an attack action with each arm, and it does not suffer offhand penalties. The Desecrated Saint can be equipped with any melee weapons from the Court Armory list. Now, these guys have a lot of things. They are tough, they cause fear, they are strong, so you can take that double-hander and not give a shit about it. They have demonic aura. So depending on which deadly sin the warband is dedicated to, the Desecrated Saint has any of the following auras. These are groovy. The aura of sloth, any model within 8 inches of the Desecrated Saint that suffers a minor hit, results from injury rolls, is treated as down instead. Aura of envy. Enemy models within 12 inches of the Saint cannot charge enemy models that are already engaged in melee combat with one of their allies. The aura of pride. When the Desecrated Saint ends its activation, all enemy models within 8 inches of it suffer 1 blood marker from the light of the morning star that the Saint emits. The aura of wrath. All friendly models within 8 inches of the Saint, including the Saint, add +1 dice to their melee characteristic and dash actions. Aura of lust. All enemy models within 6 inches of the Desecrated Saint, unless they have the keyword Black Grail, gain no benefit from any armor they wear, as they are naked before the serpent head of lust in the hell dimension that the Saint projects around it. So yeah, it's a like fuck you reality button, essentially. And it is just super cool. I don't think that one's fully done out either. Yeah, that's not 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's still some more stuff to be built on there as well. It is what it is. But yes, the court are very strong right now on the table. I would say too strong. I think a lot of other people would say too strong. But a part of that is newness. When something is new, it takes a while to figure out the counters. It takes a while to figure out, is it actually weak or not? And frankly, an argument that I regularly have with people is not all factions can be perfectly balanced against each other. Sometimes you're just going to be weak against something, right? That makes sense. And it's not going to be trade-off weak. It's not going to be, I'm a shooty army and something gets close enough to me and I'm going to lose to it because it's a melee army. But I'm going to take, it's about taking out what you can on the way. Sometimes stuff is just going to be weak. I'm a believer that games don't have to be perfectly balanced. I think people get very distracted by the perfectly balanced conversation. I want things to be fun and I want things to be balanced, but perfectly balanced doesn't exist. Now, I'm saying that, and I'm also saying I think the court is a little strong right now. So keep that in mind with regards to how strong the court might be. When it comes to painting, I think they will be one of the easiest factions to paint because you can just do trad metallics very, very simply on the vast majority of the units. You can explore dry brushing very heavily, which is one of the easiest things to do. So a simple black primer, dry brushing on some metals, a couple of inks to denote some grime and some grimness, splatter some blood on there, and you're basically done with a lot of these guys. I plan on doing a more challenging, I think, paint job. Whether it will look even remotely good or not is a very different story. So yeah, that's it for the Court of the Seven-Headed Serpent. Hands down, all around, if you forced me to pick only one faction that I was allowed to play or paint or invest in or think about from a lore point of view, it'd probably be the Court. They're just the most appealing to me. And will stay that way even if they get nerfed into Oblivion, I think. They're just so cool. They've got that traditional thing that I like, being a child of the 80s. They very much follow that design aesthetic that I grew up with. Yeah, and it really appeals to me. It makes me feel nostalgic. So that's it. I'm going to shut up and edit this thing. I thank you so much if you watched all or any of these videos on this series. I really appreciate it. Post Kickstarter launch coverage will be a little different. I've got some stuff that I've been wanting to do that I can't do until the Kickstarter is live and done, because I'm hoping to have some conversations with people who up till now have been incredibly busy and bring you those conversations. So that will be a good deal of fun. You can expect some kit bashing. As soon as we all get our STLs, which I'm not sure when that's going to be. I know Tuomas said hopefully before December. I will start painting videos and I will start working on a terrain build. Probably a series. When I watch terrain build stuff, it gets a little bit confusing for me because they're doing things that they think are very simple. And they're putting everything they can into one video. I'm more than likely going to step by step it in a simplistic, easy to follow way for people like me who just haven't done that kind of build before. So yeah, that's it. I'm now badly meandering. Keep an eye on the channel later for some Kickstarter related content. I'm probably going to do a review of just what's in the Kickstarter and price points and things of that nature. And yeah, all the best, guys. Thank you.